golf is a great way to not only reveal your character, but to build your character. So golf is a fun game, but at the same time, it develops your character, and that feels great. To call a penalty on yourself, even though you may lose the match, even though you may score a few strokes higher, let me tell you, you walk off the 18th green, you feel like a better person. You feel like somebody that has integrity. And that affects the entire rest of your life and all of your relationships and when you go to work and what you do at home. You know what I'm saying? What's up, golfers everywhere? You know, whether you are a fan of our podcast or this is your first time checking in, welcome back to the Pace of Change Golf Podcast, where we're broadcasting the evolution of golf in the 21st century. And that means each week we sit down with the innovators, pioneers, game changers, entrepreneurs, and difference makers in the golf industry and even beyond. Thanks to you, our audience is growing daily. So keep listening, liking, subscribing, and sharing our podcast with everyone you know. If you haven't yet, please take a few minutes of your time and leave a review on iTunes. I mean, not only do we want to know what you enjoy or dislike about the Pace of Change, but reviews let other listeners know why they should tune in as well. Also, don't forget to visit our website, paceofchange.com, to access exclusive listener discounts on a variety of products and services that are sure to enhance your golfing experience. You'll also find the show notes from all of our previous episodes there as well. Now, golf suffered a setback on Sunday. It was the US Open at Oakmont, and there was a rules decision by the USGA that penalized Dustin Johnson one stroke when his ball inadvertently moved as he prepared to putt on the 5th green. Now, this was a decision that has been unanimously unpopular by Dustin's fellow PGA Tour players and golf fans all over the world. So we're going to break that down today, but more importantly, we want to take this opportunity to move beyond the negative talk and use this situation as a way to encourage all golfers everywhere that golf is a sport, like many others, that can be played in a variety of forms and formats. Like any other game, as long as the players can agree on a set of rules, those rules do not have to align perfectly with the sport's competitive governing body. In the case of golf, that's the USGA or the R&A. All right, so let's get into it. Dude and I talk about it today. Are you ready? We do it fast. We make it fun. So turn it up and enjoy episode 24 of the Pace of Change Golf Podcast. Hey, what's up, everybody? Just want to take a second here and say thank you to all of our podcast sponsors, affiliates, and guests that have been on the first 23 episodes. Did you know we have exclusive discounts on our website, paceofchange.com? Check it out. Rival and Revel has a silo golf club carrier, just innovative way for speed golfers to get around the golf course efficiently. It's also great if you're going out to the range and you only want a few clubs. I won't go into them all, but Links Run is a new innovative golf course running event racing group coming to a city near you very soon. Sterling Irons, single length irons. We had Jacob Bowden on in episode 8. Laserlink Golf, Rob O'Laughlin, just an innovator in the golf industry. He's got some really great products there. 25% off. Encore Golf Balls, get a discount on really the newest, latest, greatest golf balls that perform as good or even better than Titleist Pro V1. Taylor Brands, get a logo for $25 from them, and it uses an artificial intelligence engine. Strikingly.com, an affiliate of ours. If you need a website today, you can have it. It will be beautiful, and you don't need any coding experience. Also, Hazel.com. Don't pay $75 for a lesson when you can use technology today. We got a discount there for you as well. So be sure to check that out. It's on our podcast sponsors and affiliates page at paceofchange.com.
Yo, man.
Bro, I am heated. I'm heated. I think I've posted. Here's what I've done since yesterday. I've probably posted 15 different posts on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. But I also went online this morning and had a difficult time, but managed to push through it by the power of my will, and I rescinded my application for reinstatement of amateur status.
Wow.
Yeah, man, I'm done.
Wow, that's pretty big. So for you, this put such a sour taste in your mouth with the USGA that you're just not interested in participating with anything that the USGA sanctions? Is that the deal?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I that's what I put on the, they ask you to state the reasons why you're withdrawing your application. And I said, well, first of all, I've been waiting 9 months to get an answer. And the reason why, I've had a couple conversations with the head guy of their amateur status, and he said, well, listen, you've played speed golf and you've made money in it. And I said, yeah, I play in one event a year, and it's speed golf, it's not golf. And he said, well, you might be a player of merit or something like that, in which case then we could not grant you your amateur status back. So I said, okay, well, you guys think about it and let me know what you decide. And he said, yeah, we've got some time. I mean, you're not needing to know until at least October, so we'll get back to you. And he never got back to me. So, but I told him, I was very clear with him. I said, I want to play as an amateur again because I love the game. And right now there's just not enough speed golf happening for me to justify continuing to be a professional. I want to be competitive and I want to compete. But anyways, after last night, the other reason I put was because I no longer wish to compete in USGA sanctioned events. That's exactly what I wrote.
Wow.
Yeah.
Watch it be just like that, like second to last scene in Shawshank Redemption where Red is before the parole board and he goes, so just stamp your stamp on the paper and do whatever you need to do, Sonny, and quit wasting my time. And then they approve him.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it's really, for me, it was the nail in the coffin. And maybe this is a knee-jerk reaction, but maybe it's a good thing, actually, because I think it kind of sets me up to be even more adamant and more inspired and more willing to grow the game outside of the confines of the USGA rules.
I run the Austin Skins Golf League, and people often ask me, what are the requirements to join your league? And I say, it's simple. You have to love golf, and you have to be an honorable person, and that's it. That's all that we require. And because of that, we actually have a lot of people that are in your exact situation where they cannot play local USGA amateur events because they've played in a mini tour event or something. But they're also their life is not in a place where they can dedicate so much time to the game that they can win the mini tour events.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so they're kind of stuck in this place where, they're not fully sponsored and can spend 8 hours a day practicing, but they want to compete. And so there's definitely a void that the USGA is not filling.
No, and that's what did we learn about growing up? Why do we play golf? Because of all of the values that it teaches and all of the principles that it teaches. And the first tee espouses, the 9 core values and the 9 healthy habits. And, a big part of that is you learn to be honest. You learn to regulate yourself. You have to call penalties on yourself. How many times this week did it happen that people called penalties? I think at least once or twice somebody just called a penalty on themselves. Yep. You have to trust the player, and I think trust is a big word, and that's what's so frustrating is that the USGA is taking that trust element out of it and saying we don't trust anybody. We don't even trust our own officials to be able to do the right job. We have to have some sort of higher bureaucracy sit behind a TV and analyze every situation and make the call from the tower. It's just...
Yeah, I don't know if you heard during the broadcast, but Jack's comment was that, golf is a game of honor. Players have always called penalties on themselves, and this kind of stuff is not necessary. let the player make the determination, and that's good enough. And I think you're exactly right. The direction that the modern rules have gone is away from that sentiment and a more of a reliance on officials and cameras and that sort of thing. And it's worth noting that the PGA violated their own new rule that if high definition cameras are required to see ball movement, then it's not a violation of the rules.
Wow.
And that rule was just introduced like last year, 18 months ago, or, pretty recently.
What I want to do is just go over it step by step, because I know everybody that's listening at least heard about it, but maybe they don't know exactly what happened. So we don't have to go over it in detail. But basically, Dustin Johnson is on the 5th hole. He's practice putting next to his ball. He gets ready to putt, but he doesn't ground his putter behind the ball, and the ball moves backwards. It rotates out of its position slightly backwards.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, too, that we're not even talking about a quarter rotation of the ball. It literally moved like 1 millimeter.
Like a dimple. Like it moved like, a dimple.
Yes.
And so he calls the official over. He calls Westwood over. They all discuss it. They take their time. They don't rush through it. Dustin's like, I did not cause that ball to move. He was very certain. I believe if he thought he would have caused the ball to move, he'd have had no problem saying, man, I did it. What do I do now?
Yep.
So really,
totally agree.
Yeah, so really there's a rule in the USGA rule handbook that says if that situation occurs and you've got the player and the official and the playing partner all agreeing on a certain path forward with that, then that's what you stick with.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's worth noting that he not only had one rule official in the group, he had 2 rule officials in the group. And one of them was, I believe, the director of rules for the USGA, was he not?
The head honcho.
So, I mean, if that dude tells you, yes, we're good to go and it's not a rule infraction, that should be the end of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that should be the end of it. He continues on, he's playing great, and the USGA in the meantime heads off to the TV tent and decides to look it over, pull in more people, use high definition cameras, right?
Yep.
Then they decide on the final day of the U.S. Open, the back 9 where it all counts, they're on the 12th tee, and the officials decide to walk up to Dustin, who's in the lead.
Yeah, win by 1.
Yeah, so they decide to ask him a question. Was there anything else that could have moved that ball other than you? And Dustin was like, I didn't do anything wrong. And the official was like, well, I could tell we weren't going to get anywhere with this conversation. So I made the decision, this is what the official was saying, I just made the decision that we wouldn't make a decision until after the round was over. Either he was or he wasn't going to get penalized 1 stroke.
Jeez. And it's also worth noting that not only did they tell Dustin that they were going to decide after the round and that there could be a penalty, but they also told all the other players that were still playing. And Brad Faxon made the point that if you look at what happened right after they, made this announcement on the 12th tee box, like Lowry made a bogey, Sergio made a bogey, almost hit one out of bounds, hooked the heck out of it, and translate it to another sport, right? Let's say, okay, you're playing football, American football, and there's a rules controversy, and instead of deciding it right now, we're going to, and it resulted in a touchdown. So instead of deciding it now, we're going to let you guys finish playing, and then if the end of the game, the score is only 1 point difference, it could change the outcome based on what we do in a committee room after we talk to the players. I mean, it makes no sense. No other sport would do this.
So, and that it really, at that time, I think there was 9 or 10 guys that were under par for the tournament. Jason Day was 1 under, and I think he was in 9th place at that point. And even Jason Day, who obviously now we know he knew the situation, he gets up on 17, bombs a drive. He's a foot away from landing on the green and maybe making eagle and getting to 3 under. Then what does he do? He hits a bunker shot across the green into another bunker, doesn't get out, and ends up making doubles. So there's just another example of somebody that completely fell apart. So it's this introduction of doubt and being unsure of something in the game of golf that's so destructive. And the USGA made a conscious decision to introduce doubt into everybody's game on the final 9 of the U.S. Open at the hardest golf course on the planet.
Yep.
With greens that were running 18.
Now, let me blow your mind even further. So, as you know, I got all kinds of people that play golf in my league. And one of them is actually a USGA rules official. And one of the things he said was that, and he did moderate his comment by saying that or qualify it by saying that he's the lowest level rules official that there is, and there's lots of people that know more than he does. But what he said is, all right, let's go back to number 5, and let's change what happened to say that the 2 rules officials that were there weren't sure about what the outcome was, and that Dustin Johnson was decided to make use of, I believe it's Rule 3.3 that lets you play 2 balls when in doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And so he could have played 2 balls, right? One assessing the penalty and one not, which is perfectly within the rules. But what this rules official told me is that if he had done that, then the first ball that he put could have been deemed to interfere with the line of his second putt, which would have been another 2-stroke penalty.
So, and I saw a picture today. There was a rules official in the cart, and he literally had the rule book in his face, and it looked like the Bible. It looked like an encyclopedia.
Somebody told me today, the same guy told me today that the rule book is like 556 pages.
Oh my gosh. So, and then here's the deal. I think everyone out there, I noticed that a lot of people had radios on, and I know that throughout the crowds and in the stands, everybody knew what was going on because you hear everyone cheering Dustin on and just wanting him to win. What was the right thing for the USGA to do after it was clear that he was the winner? Even if there was a stroke penalty, he was still going to win. I mean, you can make everything right in that situation if you're the USGA by saying, you know what, the original ruling made by the official on the 5th green stands, and we'll come out with a paper tomorrow that explains why we believe it was the wrong ruling, and in the future we'll try to adapt for that, instead of trying to come in the middle of play and doing it. That's all they had to do is just say, Dustin Johnson, congratulations, you shot 5 under for the tournament.
Yep.
Why, dude, did they assess the penalty?
I think it's ego. I mean, that's the short answer, I think, is ego, authority. They want to be the ultimate authority. And it's kind of crazy how in trying to grasp that mantle of authority so tightly, it kind of undermines their authority. I mean, look at how angry everyone is. And
I was up until 2:30 in the morning, reading through. There were thousands and thousands. I didn't read all of them, but I mean, and now there are even more, but there were thousands of comments and so many people. This is what hurts the most, and this is what frustrates me, and this is probably why I went ahead and made the decisions I made. But, there are so many people that are like, you know what, no wonder I quit golf, or I'm glad I made the decision to not play golf anymore, or, you know what, I was going to try and get back into the game, but this is ridiculous. This is just stupid. So many people I hear out there on social media, they're just like, you know what, I'm done with golf. This is ridiculous.
That I'm glad you mentioned that because it kind of brings us back to the purpose of why we started the podcast, which is to help grow the game of golf, get more cool people interested in golf, make golf fun again. And that's a great point. I mean, how many people either who've been away from golf or have thought about trying golf and never tried it before saw that and said to themselves, wow, man, the rules of golf are like even more litigious than the tax code. I mean, I don't want to, if that's what golf is like, I need, you know what, I need a hobby that is less stressful than normal life, not more stressful. I think that the USGA, PGA, RNA, I think we would all be better served if we followed Jack's advice. They overhauled the rules. They went back to the origins of the spirit of golf and incorporated more of the players' self-policing and intent, right?
Absolutely.
And you know what? You know, this is sort of how we sort it out in my golf league, right? We don't have rules officials walking around. But there's been, over the last 7-8 years, there's been one, maybe two guys whose integrity was questioned.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? They don't play with us anymore. And that's sort of the high road that the rules of golf need to take, is that, you know what? We don't want to be litigious. We want to use honor and integrity as our rules. And so we're going to let the players call this stuff on themselves. And if other players realize that there's a player taking advantage of that system, then essentially the free market fixes that, because those other players won't want to play with that guy.
Exactly. That's exactly how it should work, you know?
Yep.
And here's what the USGA is going to do about that. Instead of overhauling the rules, which, by the way, we should take a crack at that. We've been wanting to do that. And we should overhaul the rules and oversimplify them and stick it out there and see how people respond to that. But the second thing I want to say is, what's the USGA going to do? They're not going to overhaul the rules. They're not going to make the book smaller. They're going to go back and add 18-2 0.5.1. I mean, that is ridiculous that I even just had to say that. But that's the rule that he cited, was 18-2 0.5. There's something wrong with that.
When I heard 18-1 -0.5, I thought, what in the world? That's crazy.
You know, the other thing I wanted to point out really quickly, and think we could talk about. So obviously, the USGA gets it wrong. Guys, don't stop playing golf. If you're listening, there are other ways to play. You don't have to play by the USGA rules to have fun. In fact, you will have more fun playing golf if you go out, simplify the rules. I'll tell you this, dude. I was out with a guy playing golf the other day, and he said, you know, me and my son, we go out and we play, and he said we take out all the negatives in golf. So in other words, if we tee off and hit a tree, it's worth a point. And if we, hit it in the water, it's worth 2 points. But at the end of that, if I have a better score than my son, then I get all the points for that hole, And so it just makes golf so much fun.
Nice.
Yeah, so the point is there's that, and there's a million other ways to play the game that are fun, where you don't have to play this typical stroke play, abiding by all the USGA rules. And golf really speeds up, and it becomes more enjoyable, and it's something that people want to do. So I just really want to encourage people out there, don't give up on the game. You can go to the golf course and have a great time without playing stroke play and without having to play by the USGA rules, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's totally true. And you know what? If you do want to play by, if you do want to play by some, serious competitive rules, which we do in my league,
yeah,
we've actually done a lot in our league to simplify all of the sort of what I call the silly rules that make no difference while you're playing. All they do is slow down play. For example, the USGA rule is if you mark my ball and I put my ball back,
Penalty.
that's a penalty. But, we have a lot of local rules in my league that omit all that stuff. Like, right off the bat, one of our rules is we're always playing ready golf. There's never any penalty, stroke play or match play for you hitting if no one else is on the tee box.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, if you mark my ball, I can put it back. And there's a few others, but if you mark my ball and I put it back, the only reason that that's happening is because we might be a little bit behind and we're trying to catch up. It has nothing to do with you and I being in collusion with one another to somehow rig that ball marking scenario to one of our favor. Yeah. It has nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. And so, that's something I bring up when there are rules disputes in my league is like, look, if you're complaining about player A doing something, to start off with, number one, did that player get an advantage by doing that?
Yes.
And if the answer is no, then I pretty much just say, okay, well, we're done discussing it because I got other things to do.
Well, and then let's add to that, which is, okay, so players are not gaining an advantage by performing that action or whatever, but also, is that action helping to keep the pace of play moving? Is that action helping to keep the flow on the golf course going? There's all of these, principles that I think the USGA is subverting underneath their need to what they say, which is protect the traditions of the game. And let me tell you, every page of that rule book is another brick in the wall, man. And they've built that wall so high that eventually...
I totally agree.
They will have protected their game right out of existence, bro.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it really does all boil down to intent, and if I'm playing match play against somebody, if I'm playing a $10 Nassau against a buddy of mine, we're playing match play, and, let's say he kind of fumbles his club and drops it in the sand. He might look at me and go, is that a penalty? Now, under the strict rules of golf, yeah, it is. But you know what? I don't want to beat you that way.
Yes, exactly.
So let's just keep playing. Pretend it didn't happen. Let's just keep playing. Hit your sand shot, and let's see who's a better golfer.
Bingo, right there, bro. Second of all, USGA, I hear on Friday, I can't remember what day it was because there was rain and delays and all that, but there was somebody from the USGA that was on the telecast that was saying, we really should be proud of the USGA because they've just made every effort and they've been working so hard to speed up the pace of play this week, and isn't it just so apparent? Oh my gosh, man.
And what were the times on the rounds?
I think the Spieth's group played the front nine in 2 hours and 49 minutes. The front nine, that's right. And then the twosomes on the weekend were playing in 4 hours and 45 minutes, I think. Some Faxon said something like that. Twosomes in 4 hours and 45 minutes. There was an article that came out. Yeah, there's an article that some guy wrote. He got sent out there by Golf Week or Golf Digest or one of the golf magazines. He went out to the 16th hole, which is a par 3, and he said, there was a few reasons why I went out there, but usually because more club selection is debated on a par 3 than on a par 4 or par 5. So I figured it would take the longest on a par 3. So the first group, came out. They did everything pretty much under 50 seconds. Next group came by. They were really awesome. They were like 30 seconds, to pick a club, get over the ball, and hit it. And he said, then there was this long wait. So I walked all the way back to 15, and out in the fairway is Jordan Spieth's group, a hole and a half behind already. And it was Spencer Levine and Jordan, and I can't remember who else was there. He said, so I watched Jordan on 15 green take 2 minutes and 49 seconds to hit a putt. Then he went out and he did okay on the tee box on 16 and essentially took like another 90 seconds to hit his first putt on the 16 green. And to me, if every group has a rules official, so we got a few things to talk about real quick here. Number one, if you've got a rules official, why is he not calling that? The first time it happens, the second time it happens, and then penalty, disqualified. I mean, how is he allowed to play an entire round of golf taking 90 seconds to 2.5 minutes to hit a putt. That's cheating. That's not fair.
Yeah, I've heard PGA players talk about this before, right? If Jordan Spieth and Jason Day and Rory McIlroy and whoever else are allowed to get more time to hit their shots, but Andrew Landry or whoever doesn't get the same amount of time, absolutely that's cheating. It's the unfair application of the rules.
Yep.
Which, again, is, they're focusing their emphasis on the rules in all the wrong spots. There's no reason, like, you want to have all of this specificity with regard to a player's intent, which is impossible. But you know what you can have specificity with? Time.
Time's pretty consistent, man. It clicks over and over.
There's no reason that you couldn't have a shot clock.
Yep.
Okay, once you step onto the tee box, or once the combination of you're on the tee box and the landing area is clear, you have 90 seconds to hit. Period. Done. End.
And every single player is on the clock, which means the rule is applying exactly the same to every single player. Whereas right now, it's being applied differently. Everyone gets as much time as they basically want, which is different for every single person. And I think the people who suffer the most are those who are the fastest. In that kind of environment, those who are the quickest players end up getting the back end of that deal. Because if you watch the last few holes, like Steve Lowry just...
Yep.
I felt like he was a snail. Every single, the grass was growing and it bothered him. It was so slow the last 5 holes. And you know what? If he had a shot clock, who knows? Maybe he hits better shots. Maybe he makes those 3 putts on 15, 16, 7, or 14, 15, 16, and because he's on the clock and he's not letting his mind just completely overwhelm him with the situation. So I think, people say, well, I need more time because I need to read the green more because then I'm going to make a better putt. Whereas you and I and many other people who play golf fast know that's not true, especially for these guys, even more so than us because they're that much more talented because this is what they do for a living. I think if you put them in a situation where they only have a certain amount of time, I think they actually do better, don't you?
Yep.
So, man, I wonder what the blowback is going to be.
I don't know what the blowback's going to be. I do know that I agree with you in that the USGA's response is going to be to come up with more rules.
Yeah.
But one other thing about who bears the brunt of the slow play, it's unknown, unranked golfers like that Chinese golfer that got the penalty 2 years ago in the Masters.
Yeah, the 14-year-old?
Yeah, so they'll penalize him, but top players, no, they don't ever get penalized.
What can we do? Dude, what can we do and what can people listening do if they love the game of golf? Yeah, they're PO'd, they're not happy, but they're not going to quit the game. What can we personally do? How can we take personal responsibility to say, this has got to change? Because the other thing I wanted to mention was I sent an email to Jay Caron, CEO of the NGCOA. We had him on the podcast, but I wanted to know if is he hearing from his association members? Is he hearing from golf course operators saying, "Oh my gosh," or just what is the discussion going on amongst golf course operators? Because this is not good for them either.
No, it's not. I mean,
what can we do as players? I think at this point, from a speed golf perspective, from people who are trying to go out and create alternative formats that people can play, have fun, that cost less, are more enjoyable, fitness oriented. I know what we can do, but what can individuals do to just begin to make a difference at the grassroots level and not rely on the USGA to change the rules and not rely on anybody else, but the foursome they go out with and play every Saturday morning, every week, or whatever, twice a month, or the skins game that they're in. What can they do?
I honestly think that just getting back to what we talked about earlier, getting back to players policing themselves and relying on the integrity and honesty of the person and the intent of the player, and just use that in your Sunday, round with your buddies playing skins or Nassau, and don't worry about the USGA rules, right? I mean, if you move your ball because you set your club down too close to the ball and it moved, you know that, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, call it on yourself and be done with it. And you know what? By the same token, if you're making a few practice putts and you're not touching the ground around the ball, and it moves, just tell your buddies, hey, the ball moved, I didn't cause it, I'm going to put it back. Or actually the rules say you don't need to put it back. But just, everybody's so uptight when I see people playing for a little money on the golf course or whatever, or in their club championship or whatever. Everyone's so uptight about, oh my gosh, did I follow the rules right? And I just think everybody needs to relax and just play by intention. I mean, you pretty much know when you violated the spirit of the rules.
Yes, absolutely. And golf truly is, to go full circle all the way back around, golf is a great way to not only reveal your character, but to build your character. So golf is a fun game, but at the same time, it develops your character, and that feels great. To call a penalty on yourself, even though you may lose the match, even though you may score a few strokes higher, let me tell you, you walk off the 18th green, you feel like a better person. You feel like somebody that has integrity. And that affects the entire rest of your life and all of your relationships and when you go to work and what you do at home. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. It's built into the handicap system with the concept of peer review, right? If you're on a handicap committee, which I am, and somebody comes up for review and you play with that person and you know that they're an honorable person and that they have integrity, you're able to say in that committee meeting, hey, no, I know this person and I know that what they're doing has integrity and that they're honorable and that they wouldn't cheat, and, that's the end of the story. But here's one more thing that people can do to, help with their rounds is, in addition to playing by integrity, playing by honor, not worrying about the details, is I think golfers do have an obligation to know the big rules. So, for example, I played recently with a guy that was new to our league, and he hit his ball in the hazard, and he didn't know the rule. So I told him, he gets 2 club lengths from the spot of where it went in, or he could re-hit from where he hit before. The option to go back as far as you want on the line between the point of entry and the pin was not available because there's a lateral hazard. So he says, oh, okay, 2 club lengths. And he drops like 30 feet from the hazard. And I said, those are awfully big club lengths. What's going on?
Yeah.
And he says, oh, well, I get full relief and then 2 club lengths, right?
Yeah, so now you're going, now you're out on the golf course trying to give this guy a rules lesson, and that is something. Look, what is a game? What is a game without rules? It's not a game. That's the whole point. Games have to have rules that people abide by and that people play by. There just doesn't need to be a rule for every single possible situation that can happen from now until infinity in a book. I mean, but yes, if you're going to play golf, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Thumb through that thing, catch the major rules, and then if you're playing in a skins league or you're playing with your partners on Sunday, you can create quote-unquote local rules for your group that might differ from some of those rules. Like maybe you don't want to have yellow stake hazards. Maybe you say, hey, everything's a red stake today, and that just makes it easier. But I completely agree with you. You've got to know
and
the rules.
Speeds it up too.
And it speeds it up, absolutely. All right, man. Well, good talk. We'll be back next week again, but we definitely wanted to highlight what was going on, not only to express, I think, our frustration at what's going on, but also are concerned about it. And also, number two, to really try and empower everybody out there to go and don't rely on governing bodies and the USGA every single time you play. Golf's way bigger than that. It's way more, the earth is not flat, it's round, and golf is not a one-dimensional sport. It can be played in a variety of different ways. So get out there, experiment, have fun. Dude, you're awesome. We'll talk again soon.
You're awesome too. We'll chat next week. See you, man.
See you, bud. All right, episode 24 in the books. Hey, we hope you enjoy our weekly podcasts with the thought leaders, pioneers, game changers, entrepreneurs, innovators in the golf industry and beyond. Thanks again for listening today. And look, there's a lot of people out there I see on social media that are saying, I've had it with golf because of what's happened at the US Open, and the USGA, and a rules book that's several hundred pages long. But listen, again, let me encourage you. Golf can be played in many different ways. There's lots of alternative formats. There's lots of fun games that you can play that are more enjoyable, that are faster, like we've mentioned. Check out Speed Golf USA. That's at usaspeedgolf.com. Sign up there. We're going to have Speed Golf Leagues coming to an area or a city near you very soon. If you're not in the United States, check out British Speed Golf. Down in Australia, we've got Speed Golf Australia. Speed Golf's in Japan. Speed Golf's in Ireland. Speed Golf is in Sweden. And the list goes on and on. So Speed Golf is a great way to get out, get a good little workout in, get your golf in, get your exercise in, and move on with your day. There's also foot golf. Foot golf is a great hybrid sport between soccer and golf. You basically kick a soccer ball, but you play by the rules of golf. So much fun. Check that out at afgl.com. That's the American Foot Golf League.com. There's also things like fling golf, FLING golf, which is a lot like lacrosse and golf. It's kind of a hybrid between those two. And then you've got all of your different golf formats, like the scramble, alternate shot, match play, wolf, all kinds of stuff like that. So listen, you don't always have to play individual stroke play. You don't always have to abide by the USGA rules. That's for highly competitive people who are going to go play in those kinds of sanctioned events. All right, so I've said enough about that. Listen, you can support our efforts here. Follow us on Facebook /Pace of Change, Twitter at Pace of Change Pod. Visit our website. Sign up for our newsletter. We're going to keep you up to speed on the latest POC, podcast, news, announcements, and updates. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and over there on iTunes as well, like we already said, you can help us out by subscribing and leaving a review. So every action that you take makes a bigger difference than you can imagine. We're working hard here. Every episode takes 8 to 12 hours to record, post-produce, and get it out to you in high quality. So thank you for taking a few minutes to leave us a review. Now, how else can we serve you, the listener? What other topics would you like to hear about? Who in the world would you like us to interview? Leave your comments on social media, and know we value your feedback. Okay, until next week, we got a fantastic episode coming up. We were supposed to air it this week, but we thought we had to jump in and make sure that we discussed this crazy ruling on Sunday afternoon on the back nine at the US Open on the hardest golf course in the world. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Until then, pick up that pace and play from your heart.